Welcome to Peer Meetup for training providers, a networking community of peers across the skills sectors.
Just really to go through how ICQ as an awarding body, as we are at the moment, are going to adapt our services and style of delivery to help you implement with the new Apprenticeship Standards. Saf is absolutely right. We used to be able to walk into a room and know the questions that everyone was going to ask and be very, very confident that we were going to know the answers to those questions. And now we walk into any room and people can ask us questions and we're thinking, you know what, I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to find the answer out to that. But hopefully I can give you a broad idea of how we can see things working in the future and answer any questions that you've got today. We're an awarding body at the moment, so we have about 200 approved centres. We're relatively new to the awarding body sector. We've been around for about 7 years. And we were born together by people we were all working for large awarding bodies, Pearson, City and Guilds, EDI, if any of you knew EDI. My background is actually hospitality, so those of you in the hospitality sector, I came originally from the hospitality awarding body many years ago and ended up at Pearson. So, but we all came together because we had a desire to help large employers at the time who were starting to get their own employer contracts from the SFA, and they were finding it really, really difficult to engage with all the different parts of the programme that they had to engage with. So they had to have an e-portfolio, they had to engage with the SFA for funding, they had to engage with awarding bodies for the qualifications, and they also had to have their own learner management systems to keep track of everybody. So when we set up the awarding body, the absolute centre of that awarding body offer was that we would have one system that did everything for everybody, and so that you could use your administration time more effectively, putting learners into a system once, and then that would enable you to use all the different parts of the learner management system. And that learner management system is called iLearner. So that's really what I want to talk to you about today, because it's that we've adapted to help with the delivery and the endpoint assessment for the new Apprenticeship Standards. Did I miss anything? No. Oh, the last thing on there is that we are now an accredited apprenticeship assessment organisation as well. So we've started to get our first qualifications through that process. Okay, so our learner management system is called iLearner. It's a integrated browser-based system. So wherever there's an internet connection, you've got connection to the system. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country or the world even, you can log into iLearner and look at learners and interact with learners. We've got different parts to it, so we're still carrying on with our qualifications. So as the awarding body, we'll keep the awarding body process going. Anybody who wants to offer qualifications still can and be approved centres. But on the other side of it, we've got the Apprenticeship Standards process, where we'll have the delivery for the learners going through the process from start to finish, and then ending up with endpoint assessment. If you think of the complete journey that a learner has got to go through right from the start, we've got the pre-delivery side of the process right the way through to endpoint assessment, and there's lots and lots of touch points for learners that we have to do. Now, as training providers, we're used to going out and carrying out assessments on a weekly basis. Now what we're going to be doing is we're taking a step back from that, and we're actually going to be delivering training through the learner journey. And when the learners get to the end of that training, that's when you need your endpoint assessment. So assessment is kind of taking a bit of a back step for us, although there is going to be a lot of need for benchmarking and making sure that learners have actually learnt what's been taught to them before they get to endpoint assessment. Otherwise, we can set them up to fail. I'm going to take you through each one of these in turn, because that is the complete offer that we will do, just closing the loop for you. Let's start with pre-delivery. Pre-delivery, we see this very much with employers linking in with, because employers are in the driving seat, as we know now, they will have lots of their own employer training programs. One thing that employers are very proud of is their training programs. And if they haven't got a training program, it's where training providers are needed to deliver a training program for them. So we can work in both sides of that, either with the employers direct or with the training providers who write the program for them. That program needs mapping to the standards to make sure that it is actually fit for purpose and it will cover what's required. And that mapping can be added to iLearner to create activities for learners to go through and benchmarking activities. And that way that we know that the standards are going to be met within the system, because the system will tell us that. There will be skill scans for the learners to identify strengths and weaknesses. So right from the start, they'll be able to sit there and tell us what they're good at, what they're not good at. Again, directly linked to the standards so that we can see where learning has got to take place. And we can create some diagnostic tests, again, to do that benchmarking and making sure that we've got that skill scan absolutely correct. The resources that we've got then can be added to iLearning, like I say. They can be mapped in against the standards directly. And we can add those milestone activities. I think the really big thing at this stage is we'll also add the guided learning hours, because those guided learning hours are quite a worry for everyone, that you've got to make sure you've got the right 20% guided learning hours in there. So if we map them in at the start, it takes away the worry for you later on as you go down through the delivery. We'll also have some bespoke tests set up at this stage directly for employers, so that it's all about them and their learners and their own businesses rather than a generic test. When it comes to actually using the apprenticeship, the actual management of the system, we can take the learner through. We've got obviously the tracking of the learner against their end completion date, so we can see how far in front or behind they are, how they're keeping up to date with all the work that's been set for them. We will link that in with learner reviews. So the learner reviews are done on the system, which are directly related to the progress of that learner of that moment in time. We've also got in there the funding return system. So because the funding is going to be very important, it's certainly new to anybody who's been subcontracting in the past, the funding system will replace any paperwork system that you need to do, and all the learners that are in the system, you'll automatically get access to the funding management system without any extra charge. We've got a new tool in there which is called a web call tool, so we can actually set up a webcam conversation with our learners. This will be, originally we actually designed it so that it would be for the gateway meeting, thinking that learners would be all over the place. But actually, as we've started to develop it, we thought, well, why don't we use it for professional discussions, and why don't we use it for the review functionality, the reviews that we have to do with the learners every 10 weeks. So actually that web call tool will be really useful right the way through the programme. And everything that's done on there will be saved on the system. It will be date stamped and timed, so you've got evidence of it for any Ofsted inspections. And that will actually cover the gateway meeting as well, which is also needed to. We need to do that in the most cost-effective way. I think that's the important thing. And then we come to endpoint assessment, where we will come into that. We'll work with our customers and anybody who's working with us for endpoint assessment. So our deliverers can deliver the learning, and then they can put their learners through an endpoint assessment directly with us. And we'll be recruiting from our teams of employers that work with us. We'll be recruiting endpoint assessments, so endpoint assessors, so that we can help everybody access an endpoint assessor effectively and easily. Obviously, the multiple choice tests, any professional discussions, projects, observation records, all be recorded on iLearner. So iLearner will be literally an end-to-end tool. And this is one of the reasons why it'll reflect in our pricing, which I'll tell you in just a second. The final part of the system, we will use the web call tool where we can for endpoint assessment to keep the costs low. Customer service is a really good example of where the assessment plan tells us to use technology as much as we possibly can, with very little money for endpoint assessment for that. So we will use the web call tool for that. And then we'll finish it up with internal quality assurance, because that will be all included in the offer there, and obviously the liaison with the external verifiers then. So that is the complete standard solution that we'll have for you. And now when it comes to costing, the first part of that journey, which is the learner from the day they start with you until the gateway meeting, including the gateway meeting, so before endpoint assessment, we're going to charge £70 for that process. And that will include everything that you need. So it will include the system, the management tool, the tracking of your learners, any benchmarking assessments that you do with the learners, but also it will include a funding management system. So if those of you that have got funding management systems and know how expensive they are, that will be included within that £70 per learner. It won't be all up front. We're going to charge £20 up front, and then as the funding comes in, then we'll charge another £25 if they're still with you at the end of month 3, and another £25 if they're still with you at the end of month 9. And that really is just to spread the cost in line with the funding that comes in. And then as you move into endpoint assessment, we've got two prices. Our price of, for instance, customer service endpoint assessment, we've set that price at £400, which is the recommended. These are the recommended amounts that are going for us. So we've got 400 for customer service. We've got team leader, supervisor, 650, and we've got hospitality team member at the moment, which is 800. And the difference there is because certainly for customer service and team leader, we can use the web call tool for that and use technology. Whereas with something like hospitality team member, we'll have to have face-to-face assessment, which will therefore put the cost up. We have said though that for learners if the learners are not on iLearner, then we will charge that extra £70 because of the access to all the records that we'll have to have. So if learners are on iLearner, the great thing is that endpoint assessment is £70 cheaper, which means that you get the whole learner journey for free. So it's quite a nice offer when you turn that around. Okay. All of our pricing is very, very transparent with ICQ. We try and work with customers so customers know exactly where they are at any time. We do charge a £500 setup fee, but that does include a 1 day's training for everybody to make sure everyone knows how to use the system. We will do any other consultancy for £500, so we'll do mapping, we'll do any other training that anybody wants. But we don't charge for anything like adding trainers or assessors or administrators to the system. So there's no license fees or anything like that. We only charge for learners, so everyone knows exactly where they are. And we don't charge any annual software fees either. So that's me. That's iLearner anyway, and ICQ. Thank you very much for listening to us, and I'll be around for the rest of the day, so if anyone's got any questions, then please ask away.